Hello and welcome to the Game 3 podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and because the NBA offseason is so slow, Bryce and I are going to dive deep into a recap of the 2024 NBA draft. This is something we like to do at the end of every year, but because things got going with the offseason so quickly and because the draft was so close to the offseason, we haven't really gotten a chance to do that yet. So we're going to take this time and actually dive into what happened on draft night. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game 3 podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? Hey, the Pistons made the biggest move of the day. Do we get to talk about them again to start off this episode?
Maybe we'll do Pistons at the end because there's something that I have to understand about your life here.
You want to talk about my? You want to? No, you want to talk about my yard? I tweeted out a picture of my yard today. Can we talk about that? That's more. That's gonna be more fun.
It. Oh,
okay.
We'll talk about that momentarily too. I'll take a look. But so I was talking to you beforehand about how I have to go to the airport twice today because I'm dropping my brother and his family off at the airport. And then I have to go back because I'm flying to the United States to go to Summer League and everything. And I was like, yeah, like it's fine. It's like 25 minutes, whatever, to the airport. And you looked at me like I had three heads, as if like it's not normal for somebody to only have to drive 25 minutes to get to an airport. So then I asked you, how long does it take you to get to an airport? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to drive to the airport twice in one day, there and back, my day would be over. I would then get home and go to sleep and have to start the next day because it is a 4-hour drive to the airport for me. Now, I want to be completely transparent. There is a little tiny airport that only flies to one other city that is 3 times the price, that is a little bit closer. So, but to get to a real major airport, it is a 4-hour drive for me. So on Thursday, when I fly to Las Vegas, Sam, I will start off my day driving 4 hours to Denver, parking, and then start my flight to Vegas.
We got to get you closer to just like civilization, Bryce, like just more around humanity. If only for this airport problem that you have. No other reason, just for this airport issue.
It makes for long day. The worst is the flight home. So like leaving Vegas and I'll change to, I mean, listen, your flight's crazy, but so who am I to complain? But I'll change 2 time zones and it's a couple hour flight, whatever. And then it's another 4-hour drive. That's when it really sucks is on the way home, especially coming from the West Coast. Cause that's 2-hour time change, 2-hour flight, 4-hour drive. Like, it's an all day thing to get home from Vegas. So,
and you lose an hour like in the middle of that trip as well, because you go from mountain time zone to central time zone. Yeah, that actually does sound pretty miserable. Okay. So just some quick housekeeping, because that like blew my mind beyond that. That's like staggering to me. Quick housekeeping. So guys, we really appreciate all of the support we've had during draft season.
Yeah.
All of you have been so great in listening, and I think we averaged like well over 20,000 listeners during the draft cycle and everything. So this has all been really, really, awesome for us. Hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button on the podcast feeds, leave a rating, leave a review on the podcast feeds. They're really, really helpful. Hit the like button if you're watching this video right now. That also is just like a small thing that you can do to help the show. Bryce and I will certainly be podcasting in Las Vegas at some point, probably twice while he's there. I also will have, I believe, my first 2025 watch list.
People are asking, Sam. They want it. They need it. So people were tweeting asking when it's coming out.
Yeah, that'll be out tomorrow at The Athletic. So it'll either be tomorrow or Thursday. I think we've moved it up to tomorrow, but I believe it'll be tomorrow. If something crazy happens offseason wise, that could obviously adjust and change, but I filed it. So we're all set there. So you'll get to see where I'm at on these guys at some point. Unsurprisingly, Cooper Flagg ranks very, very highly. That's another thing I want to talk about with Bryce at the end of this show. But our show today, as I mentioned at the top, is going to be a 2024 NBA draft recap. So I sent off Bryce a list of like 10 questions or so regarding this draft as it occurred, let's say.
Sure.
And I guess let's just start with this.
Okay.
Have your thoughts on this class and its likely success, depth, anything like that changed at all now that you've seen where some of the players have gone, some of the fits, now that you've heard some of the press conferences from general managers explaining why they selected some players? Has anything shifted for you in any way regarding this draft class and the 2024 draft as a whole?
I don't think so. Like, I feel the one thing I do notice with me, and I think as like trying to be a true evaluator, not just a fan, but somebody who like really does this and scouts and tries to be respected, is I can't always have rose colored glasses. Like, I have to really look at, oh, this may not work, or this, here are the flaws. What I found myself doing is always trying to find the positives of the fits, and, oh, here's the positives of this guy. This is how it can work. And so I found myself doing that even in our live streams and afterwards. And I'm like, these all can't be good fits. There has to be some of this that's not going to work. There has to be some of these guys I don't truly believe in. And so I'm probably a little more positive. That's just because my instinct is to like, feel that way. But I still, like, if you ask me who's the all NBA guy, I still don't have a name for you. Who's the 25 point a game guy? I don't have a name for you. So I still feel very much the same of, it was flat at the top. I think there's some really good role players. I think there's some guys, I think we're going to talk more about this, Sam, who ended up in spots where it's like, yep, that makes sense. That's where that guy can be successful filling that role. And I did like that aspect of it with a couple players specifically, but the high upside stuff still isn't there for me with anybody. Nobody went to a place where I'm like, yep, he can really flourish as this high upside swing or anything like that. I still like where I thought the best value was in the middle of the first round. So I don't think anything has changed a whole lot for me in regards to that.
I think that's kind of where I'm at as well. I like Steph Castle and Reed Shepherd quite a bit coming into the draft. I still like them. I thought Ron Holland was like a real question mark coming into the draft. I still think that the fit in Detroit is perilous. Let's go with that's like a word, right? Perilous.
Sure.
Where it could go one way or another. I think that one guy that did, kind of shift for me a little bit is Rob Dillingham. I was somebody that throughout the process was quite worried about where Dillingham would end up. And I thought that if he ended up in the wrong situation, it would have a real chance to cause him a lot of issues. Him ending up in Minnesota is about as strong of a place he could have ended up, because it helps to insulate his defense naturally with Gobert there, with Jaden McDaniels there, potentially next to Anthony Edwards long-term. It also hopefully will allow him to grow into his game organically, playing as a backup early on behind Mike Conley, letting him just come in and play the game that he's so successful at, which is going to get buckets in a real way. So I think that is one real high upside player, certainly offensively, right? Like Dillingham has all of the offensive like separation ability and gifts that you can want from a touch perspective, everything like that. Where that natural fit, like I had Rob 15, 16, whatever, I had him on the board, just like outside the lottery. If I had known he was going to end up in a place like Minnesota, which was like impossible to know at the time because they had a pick nowhere near that realm, he is a player I would have ranked much, much, much more highly, for instance, and I think has a much better chance to hit an upside outcome now.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was one of those I hadn't, like you, thought about the Timberwolves at all. We talked a lot about the Spurs. Minnesota's even better insulating him defensively, in my opinion, because of the wing defenders they have there. Also, and I guess you could argue both sides of this, but in Minnesota, he's not going to start. He's going to come off the bench for sure. Mike Conley is still going to be the starter there, but now the kind of the pressure. And I realize San Antonio, I think there's probably more pressure on San Antonio just because you're playing with Wemby. Like, people are going to watch you play because they want to watch you Wemby. There's going to be eyes on you compared to, say, Detroit or maybe even Washington or what. Like, nobody watches those games. So in Minnesota, he doesn't have to start. He doesn't have to take as much usage. There's all these other good players around him. Now, where the pressure comes there is that team's ready to win. And is Rob ready to do that? I've kind of told people, I think where Rob's going to help them a lot is in the regular season. I don't know in these first couple years, he's a guy that's really doing a ton for you in the playoffs because teams do such a better job of hunting that one guy defensively throughout a series. Maybe he can still come in and light it up for, 10 or 15 minutes, and be impactful in a couple games. But I think it's a really good situation. And then if things really click, then when Conley's ready to move to the bench a couple years from now or retire a couple years from now, maybe Rob is ready. So I think he ended up in a good spot. That's one of the biggest ones for me in terms of he got drafted higher than what I had him on my board, but I'm not even really upset about it because it's such a nice fit and spot for him to be successful and a need for them, right? Like, don't you think that's a real need for Minnesota? Some of that scoring juice that he can provide.
So Rob Dillingham's 18-1 to win Rookie of the Year this year. I kind of sneaky like Edey a decent amount to win Rookie of the Year. I think that he'll be productive in the regular season at the very least. But Dillingham is an interesting flyer to me because this is the next kind of question that I wanted to surprise you with a little bit. Is now that we know where these players are going to end up, how many day one starters do you actually see in this draft class right now? I think the number is like incredibly low.
Okay, let's go from the top because we can stop. Does Alex start? Does Sar start still, right?
I think that them moving out Denny does really give him a shot to start at the 4 next to Jonas, but the thing is, that would involve moving Kuzma to the 3. I think they probably like Bilal Coulibaly. Definitely should like Corey Kispert, right?
Yeah, they should.
Malcolm Brogdon is there now, or they have to make a decision on what they're going to do with the point guard. Do you bring back Tyus Jones? Maybe. I think that my immediate reaction is that he doesn't start, honestly, based on how the roster sits right now. I think their starting lineup is probably Brogdon, Kispert, Coulibaly, or Jordan Poole, maybe Brogdon, Jordan Poole, with Kispert coming off the bench,
Kuzma
or Coulibaly coming off the bench, and then Kuzma at the 4 and Jonas at the 5, right?
So you just took 2 guys out, right? Because you're not starting Bub then. So that's another guy that was a lottery pick that's not starting. Does Risacher? I don't he fits in there at the 3, but if they're trying to win at his, they're probably not starting him, are they?
So, I mean, right now they have DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson, right? Jalen's definitely starting, no questions asked.
100%.
I mean, I guess that DeAndre could get moved still, but I would venture that DeAndre starts over Risacher early in the season.
Klingon probably not over Ayton unless Ayton gets moved. Agreed.
Yep.
Shepard's not, we know that. Steph does. So that's 1, right? We think Steph Castle starts.
Truly, I think it depends on training camp to me because they have Chris Paul, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson still. Right?
I think he starts. Give me 1.
I'm truly not convinced he starts.
Okay. Connect. And for people this isn't the order of the draft. I know I'm just going through order.
Yeah.
Connect won't in LA as much as we like that. Buzelis doesn't in Chicago because of Patrick Williams, I would guess. I mean, you could play those guys if you want to play him at the 3, but Topic isn't playing this year. Oh,
so
sorry.
what we're looking at, like probably Giddey, Kobe White, Patrick Williams, Vucevic, and then a fifth guy.
Desumu.
Yeah, like look, that's what I would do.
Kobe,
obviously,
Desumu, Giddey, Patrick Williams, and Vooch for the time being. Now, I'm not saying I would absolutely do that because I would trade. And here's the other thing. Know who we didn't just say? The guy that makes $40+ million and you need to reclaim some value for. Or maybe you said, maybe I didn't say him. But Zach LaVine, if he's on the roster,
Zach LaVine's definitely starting, like 100%.
So I glossed over that. So I don't think he's starting. Topic isn't playing. I don't think Ron Holland starts because you can't play that many non-shooters. Devin Carter isn't, even if he didn't have the injury. Salon, isn't because they just brought back Bridges. Cody Williams, probably not. Maybe.
I mean, like Utah's in a funky spot, but I can't imagine that Cody starts. Like they have Lowry. They're happy to play Lowry at the 3 at times, even. Like you have John Collins, you have Lowry, you have Taylor Hendricks, who's a year ahead of Cody in the system. You have Walker Kessler still on the roster. You have, Bryce Sensabaugh, who's a year ahead of him in the system too. Like, look, I'm not. He's one that I wouldn't like totally rule out, but probably not, right?
Yeah. Deron Holmes isn't. Jared McCain isn't. Dillingham isn't. Collier isn't. De Silva isn't. Jacoby Walt. Like now we get to guys. Like here's the 2. Yves Missi. Like I realize they signed Daniel Tice, but I still don't think that's going to be the last play. And then Zack Edey.
I think Edey is the one who starts. I think we're talking about like one starter day one in this draft class. That's what this draft class is, though. And I think that is a really good encapsulation of just where not only the lack of upside, but like the lack of ability to play like significant minutes early sits in this draft class. And look, like part of this is that the NBA is absolutely fucking loaded right now.
Sure.
Like I'm actually of the opinion that we need expansion to
I agree.
Like, thin out some of these rosters on some level, because it is really, really crazy. But again, I say all of this to say my original point here in terms of where I'm at with rookie of the year. Steph Castle will probably get some on-ball minutes. I don't think Alex Sarr's game like really translates to rookie of the year status, right?
Probably not. He'd have to be unreal defensively because even me being as big a believer in his offense as I am, I don't think it's there right now, and definitely not for rookie of the year. The other thing in Washington is you got some other guys that are going to take some offensive usage Jordan Poole is still on that roster. Kuzma's on that roster. Kisper is going to, so like, he's just not going to have the offense. He'd have to be unreal defensively.
So I say that thinking that my 2 favorite guys are probably Edey and
Steph.
I think Rob Dillingham will come in and score. Like, I think he can come in and just play.
Now, I will say this. I don't know. In a world where Detroit has Ron Holland as their second best prospect behind Cade Cunningham, there could be a lot of usage and scoring for Ron Holland in Detroit if he's ready for it. I'm not saying he's ready for it. I'm not saying it would go great. All I'm saying is if Trajan really values him above J.I., above Asar, even with the vets they brought in, those aren't guys that have to take a lot of usage. Tim Hardaway Jr., those are floor spacers. Even Tobias doesn't have to take a lot of usage. And so, what they paid him, he should take whatever role they ask of him. So if they want to really feature Ron Holland, I'm not saying I would do this. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. There's a chance that they could. And he could be a sneaky guy just in terms of, hey, he's getting a lot of shots.
It's not a crazy take. He's 14-1 right now. That's not like out of this world. And like the other name here, Terrence Shannon is 80-1.
I saw that. That was interesting to me. Where that's a guy that there's not going to be a ton of shots in. They need the scoring punch off the bench. I get it, but that seemed to like a lot to me.
It feels aggressive. I think like that rookie of the year is going to be almost entirely dependent on like injuries this year, unless Edey just like runs away with it. If Edey averages like, 15 and 12 or something, like he might do it. And I think that's like a really plausible outcome for Edey in the regular season, is him coming in and averaging like 12 and 12 or 12 and 10 or something, and playing in that way and just being the guy. But
because Clingan, unless Ayton gets moved, then Clingan enters the conversation a little bit more, right?
If Ayton gets moved, Clingan certainly enters the conversation. But yeah, no, like looking through the rookie of the year odds right now, and this is kind of my third question as we're kind of talking about it now, the second one that I wanted to spring on you. If you had to pick a rookie of the year right now, who would it be?
I was looking at the Lakers roster too to see how much time Dalton Connect's going to get, because I know he hasn't shot it well so far, but like that's a guy just coming off the bench. They could use his scoring punch that maybe could just go average 15 a game, and all of a sudden that stands out more than anything else. I should say Alex Sarr, because that's just been my guy through the whole thing. You know what? I'm going to change a little bit here. I came away really liking it. I'll go Steph Castle. I think Steph Castle's going to get a lot of play. I could see them starting him off of CP. I could see him getting a lot of love for his defense, because people are, here's the other thing. Who are people going to watch? Are people going to tune into Washington Wizards games still? I don't think so. People still aren't going to tune into Pistons games. I don't think people are tuning into Blazers games, even if Clingan is playing. I think Castle and Edey and Dillingham, are the most of the biggest draws early in the season. Would you agree with that? I think those are the guys people want to see that maybe aren't draft nerds like us. Edey just being this massive dude.
Edey, yeah.
And then Edey for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
But like I found myself fascinated to watch that game. I had to watch it this morning had recorded it. And then Dillingham, because he's this bucket getter, but he's so small. But then I think people watch.
He plays on a great team too.
And he plays on a great team. Yeah, I left that part out. Edey should be on a really good team. I think we both think they'll be very good. And then people are going to watch Wemby, and the NBA is going to put Wemby on national TV. Yeah. So if Castle is starting and he's even close to as good defensively as what you and I think, he's going to start to get a reputation way faster than some guys defensively. It'd be like, watch what Steph Castle and Wemby do, and he's going to be in all these clips. And look at the lob that Castle threw Wemby, and this whole Chris Paul part of it. Awards are a little bit narrative based, and I think Castle has a path to a narrative the same way Edey does, and I think also Rob Dillingham.
I think I would go right now. Edey 1, Castle 2, Dillingham 3.
Yeah.
If you made me like say the 3 that I like the most, right? And if you made me pick one of like the odds, right? Like Edey would be my top choice at 9-1 right now. But second, I think would be Dillingham at 18-1. Like I don't mind that bet.
What is like, the top? What's number one? Like who has the best?
Sarr is number 1 at 4.25-1. Risacher at 6.25-1. Steph Castle 7-1. Edey 9-1. Dalton Connect 9-1. Reed Shepherd 11-1. Modest Bazelis 12-1. Ron Holland and Tidjane Salon 14-1. Cody Williams 15-1. Then Clingan and Dillingham 18-1. Devin Carter 30-1. Bub Carrington 40-1. McCain and Khalil Ware 50-1, and then a bunch of 80-1s as well. Eve Missy right now is 80-1, by the way, and is currently a starting center. So
I just don't think Sarr is going to have the counting stats unless he is an absolute menace defensively and averages a steal and a couple blocks. I just don't think he's going to have the offensive numbers where even if Edey isn't as impactful defensively, he very easily could average a double-double this year, because he's going to get the minutes and because he's massive. And listen, I liked his game watching it this morning. He moved well and he did some really good things. I have some concerns like I still had before the draft, and it was just one game, but I could see Castle having the numbers too. And especially if he's disruptive defensively and shoots it halfway decent, I could see him racking up some assists. Yeah.
Terrence Shannon at 80-1 is not a bad number to me either. I will say that. That is not a bad number to me.
Here's the one, and you mentioned this. Injuries could change this thing a lot too,
Yes.
right? I
And
mean,
will, I think. Like
yeah,
this is the easiest, cleanest way for this thing to shift. And because everyone is so packed together, I think it will shift because of injuries.
there's, Philadelphia, does all of a sudden Jared McCain get forced into a huge role because of
Yeah,
injuries and their depth? I'll bring up my guy, God forbid something happened to Aaron Gordon or something like that. Does De'Ron Holmes end up starting games because
sure.
Aaron Gordon is out? And you can do this with any guys down the line. Those are just the ones I'm mentioning, but I think so as well. This is going to be huge, just opportunity, minutes, the type of usage guys will get.
The next question here, which I think is our fourth question. Have your thoughts changed in any way on the number 1 overall pick in Zaccharie Risacher? This is a guy that we didn't really talk about in that last conversation in regard to Rookie of the Year. And I think very much should be in the conversation. Would certainly be in the top 5 for me if I had to pick a Rookie of the Year outcome based on the situation they landed in, based on talent, everything like that. Do you feel like this was the right pick for the Atlanta Hawks still? Do you feel like this is a decision that they will come to be regarded as having nailed? Any strong thoughts on Risacher at number 1?
I mean, I have strong thoughts. I still would have taken Alex Sarr though. Like I haven't changed based on that. I'd be a hypocrite if 2 weeks after I still didn't have him as the number 1 player on my board and thought he would make sense there. Now, does he make sense right now? Absolutely not, because they still have Clint Capella, Onyeka Okongwu, and Larry Nance now on their roster. And if they have no whatever intentions of moving any of those guys, I don't know what their plan is, then sure, Risacher makes sense. I think that what I did kind of begin to like was Zaccharie and Jalen Johnson together. I do think those two guys make a lot of sense together. I think they form a very interesting wing forward room. Now you bring in Dyson Daniels now with him and Zaccharie, like maybe you have this defensive infrastructure around Trae Young and a lob threat big. I know Zach, he's not going to be that impactful as a rookie, but if he's going to live up to anywhere close to a number 1 pick, he's got to be impactful defensively, because I don't think he has the on-ball juice offensively. Like it's going to be because he's an elite 3-and-D archetype. And so I understand it. I just still would have taken Alex Sarr, traded Clint Capella, and that's just because I think he was the best player in the class. But I had Risacher too, so I'm not going to sit here and just end in the same tier. So I'm not going to go crazy.
Yeah, I'm so confused with I'm not confused. I know with what Atlanta's doing, they clearly want to contend, but I think I'm a little bit, I think I would like Zaccharie Risacher in a situation that seems a little bit more settled early in his career. Like, I think that is like, if he would have ended up with San Antonio somehow, right? They're still rebuilding, but everything seems settled. Like they have guys that they
know
like.
the path. The path makes,
yeah.
You know what you're doing in San
You
Antonio.
have Victor is the guy. You can find guys to place next to him. In Risacher, I think would have made a lot of sense next to Victor. So I would almost like him better in a situation that is settled. I think that, say Atlanta doesn't make the play-in this year, which is very plausible if Trae Young goes down or gets hurt, or if Trae Young even misses 20, 25 games this year for some reason, they're not making the play-in. I don't think sure. that would result in them being probably the worst team in the league if Trae Young misses that much time. Not the worst team in the league overall in terms of record, but in those 25 games, I would bet they'd be among the worst teams in the league without Trae Young. So what if they decide to rebuild next summer?
This is why
Zaccharie Risacher the guy that you're rebuilding around? Not really. But he is a guy that really ticks boxes for a settled situation. And maybe they're just no, we're not going to play that game. We're not settling anything. We want to contend. We want to compete. We're going to go do this, that, and the other. Okay, whatever. We're not going to rebuild. San Antonio has all of our picks. That's, completely valid and justified, I guess, on some level. But I don't think he's the kind of player that you just say, oh no, this is our guy that we're rebuilding around. He was the number 1 overall pick. Like we have the dude now. No, like he is a good, solid starter in all likelihood. And I wonder, and like he's going to be paid immediately, like a good, solid starter, making like, 12 to $14 million a year. I don't know. It feels like a very unsettled situation for him to be entering, unless like Trae Young and Jalen Johnson just end up being awesome.
I talked myself into that exact same conversation the other day, and that's where I don't like the pick, because I think that's where he could start to feel a ton of pressure from the fan base and everybody else. If they trade Trae, then it's going to turn into, well, now we have our number 1 pick, and he's not that guy. He's not the face of your franchise type of player. And so that is my biggest concern for him in Atlanta. If there is any path or thought of that, I think Atlanta should have taken a way bigger swing on something. I think the process should have been different. And I don't have necessarily the answer, but I don't think I would have landed on Risacher. If they keep Trae and Jalen and they build this out, I think it'll be fine. But if they go rebuild at the deadline or next offseason, I'm not going to like that pick based off how I feel about his game right now today.
Like there's a chance that both the Hornets and Raptors end up better than the Hawks this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Scotty's really good, IQ, Barrett, they have Kelly Olynyk, who's a serviceable vet. And who would you say? The Hornets? Yeah.
Well, and they still have Bruce Brown on the roster. Maybe he moves. Here's the other thing too. Like we're doing this early.
It's not like Jakob Poeltl sucks. Like I don't mean to like.
Well, Jakob's better than what the Hawks have at the center position. So like, it's just really interesting to try and figure out where the league is at right now, because like I still feel like we're in this zone where everything is so plugged up for some reason in regard to trades. Like we're going to talk a little bit about like the Paul Reed thing at the end, and like, why I think that could be like a precursor to Detroit doing something. But like, I'm still trying to navigate what these rosters are going to look like, because so many of these rosters don't make a ton of sense as presently constructed to me. Even though, they could theoretically be like filling goals and plans that teams have. I don't know. Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's been a weird offseason just in general, because free agency was a little bit slow. The way it came out of the gates, there's some really good players left. I mean, I think they're good players. I think Tyus Jones is a really good player. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's not any good. Gary Trent Jr., I think, could help a team. Like it is interesting. Yeah, that's true. The hard apron, first and second aprons with the trades.
I think teams are really like kind of hesitant right now to do anything because they're worried about the aprons and they're worried about limiting flexibility long term. And it's hard. Like it's really, really hard. And look, like I do think some of this will ease up over the course of the next off seasons as the cap rises 10% each off season. This off season could theoretically be the worst of it because of the way that, the off season is going to, or the way that the cap is going to jump. It could allow for more flexibility within the apron structure, but yeah, I don't know. I do worry that the new CBA has kind of created some issues. And also it's just very clear that teams are just a little bit gun shy right now in terms of pulling the trigger on some of these deals.
Okay. I have a question for you that wasn't on there because you made all the questions. So I thought of this as we were talking. I've asked you this question before about the NBA doing their offseason in the order that the NFL does their offseason, which the NFL does free agency and then the draft. And one point I brought up is I think that sometimes rookies could end up in better positions because then teams would already have their rosters hashed out a little bit. Is there a move right now, this offseason thus far, that you're like, man, that kind of changes how I feel about that rookie on that team, whether it's early in their career or long term? positive or negative, maybe like Valanciunas in Washington. Is that a super positive, or do you look at that as a negative that it takes?
So you're referring to moves that have already been made.
Moves that have already been made that somehow, like, who's affected most by the moves that have been made in terms of rookie, whether positive or negative? I brought up the Miles Bridges thing last time and how for Tijan Salon, where is his role now? Like, when does he get to move in to the starting lineup with that being a 3-year deal? The Valanciunas one, maybe that's a positive thing. I think about Sacramento with Monk and DeRozan. Does that affect Devin Carter? Maybe it doesn't. Is there anything like that? I brought it up when the Nuggets signed Saric. What does that mean for DeRon Holmes? Is that going to be less minutes for DeRon Holmes in Denver?
Yeah, like I actually long-term really liked Washington bringing in Valanciunas.
Okay.
Because I don't think Alex R is ready to play center from the jump. I think he is a 4 early in his career, but signing Valanciunas to essentially a 2-year deal, because I can't remember if it's a non-guarantee on the 3rd year, a team option, or like a very small partial or whatever it is. But I actually do really think that having Valanciunas there to take the wear and tear is going to be valuable for Sar early in his career. And then Sar can come over and protect the weak side of the rim. Hopefully, that invigorates Valanciunas in some way. Yeah, like that kind of tracks for me. It is probably my favorite move, I would say, that a team has done to help a developmental situation, maybe.
Non-guaranteed for Valanciunas on year 3.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any that you feel like guys got, like, players were acquired over the minutes you thought that they were going to get early in their career? Like, and to be honest, I'm scouring here and I don't necessarily know that I've found one.
Yeah, I mean, here's one. We talked about this on the last episode, but the Dario Saric signing, I'm really interested to see how that impacts DeRon Holmes.
Yeah.
Do they just play Saric? Like Michael Malone does not like playing rookies if he doesn't have to. Is Saric just going to be their backup big now? Is that the thing that really annoys Nuggets fans this year? Because they have Malone, not playing any of the young guys again.
And so like, here's one, and I'm not saying this was the wrong move. It probably was the right move, but I thought of Oso Ighodaro whenever the Suns signed Mason Plumlee. And it was like, okay,
Sure.
Well, and again, I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm not saying that they did wrong by bringing in a veteran center over a rookie center. I just, I think this is going to happen with Yves Missi, where right now we kind of have him penciled in as a starter. I assume there's another move that they go to acquire a player, and it's actually that guy and Daniel Tice, and Missi is actually the 3rd center. But up until yesterday, there was nobody. I look at the Cavs with Jalen Tyson. Have the Cavs really brought in anybody that could potentially? Not like they really haven't. So
no.
And Okoro is still out there as a restricted free agent. I don't know. I mean, assume he's going to come back. The money's starting to dry up, but it was interesting if you had anybody. I think the Valanciunas with the Wizards. I still think Chris Paul with the Spurs, as much as it helps Wemby, I think it also helps Castle. I think that would be awesome for him.
I agree. Like any of the young guys on the Spurs, Chris Paul is just going to help them immensely. And look, like, we'll see what Atlanta does here. I think Atlanta has some cleanup work to do on this roster. Maybe getting somebody like Dyson Daniels to come in and be an active defender might really help, right? With getting Risacher, acclimated early in some way, shape, or form. Won't have to be as on the ball defensively, potentially. Won't have to take as many tough assignments with Dyson there. So yeah, no, I liked that deal from Atlanta. I think it made sense, and I still think it makes sense. But yeah, like, Risacher is in an intriguing position now. I don't know how much better of a prospect he is. I would say he's like a slightly better prospect than Dyson Daniels. But I like Dyson quite a bit, and I think Dyson's going to be like a significant impact defender long term. I think he's a better prospect than Dyson because I know he can shoot, but they're probably right around the same tier to me in terms of like prospect value. Same with Kobe Buffkin. Like Kobe Buffkin's like right around the same tier to me as Risacher, and those guys, if Atlanta goes in a different direction, is going to be it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing. Let's shift now to some of the fun stuff. What was, in your opinion, the best pick of the 2024 NBA draft?
Yeah, I mean, this one's not fun, but like I think Sarr to the Wizards is an awesome pick. Had the best player on my board, and I thought the Wizards were always a really nice fit for him, and they end up getting him there. I think Shepherd to the Rockets, we talked about that. I like that one a lot. We already talked about the Dillingham one. Edey to the Grizz, even though that was way higher. Like this is kind of a weird one for me because he was so much higher or lower, not so much, but he was lower on my board than that spot. I like the fit of Deron Holmes with the Nuggets. We've talked about that. I think Dalton Connect.
Right, hold on. You're getting ahead of my next one.
Oh, sorry.
Getting ahead of my next question I was going to ask you. My favorite would probably be Reed to Houston. I think Reed like really just rounds out their core in an interesting way. Getting Reed to be able to come in and shoot, being able to have him in like dribble handoff actions with Şengün, being able to have him in transition with Amen Thompson seems really fun, right? Having him in transition with like Jalen Green seems really fun. Having his shooting is going to like open up the court in such a significant way. Yeah, like I think that is kind of the one just from a fit perspective that immediately jumps to my mind near the top of the draft, particularly where I'm like, okay, this was my number 2 player. They get him at number 3. This is a fantastic, swing for the fences. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't at the star level, but at the very least, like he's the perfect connective player to be able to like roll that way.
Yep. No, I like that one. So at the very top, it would be picks 2 and 3. I really liked what those guys did.
Yeah. And look, like Reed, like I don't know how much Reed's going to play this year. They just signed Aaron Holiday, right? Yeah. Like Reed might end up not playing a crazy amount, but yeah, I mean, like I think that they nailed this draft again. Like between that and the AJ Griffin move, I think the Rockets. I'm going to ask you like what teams had your favorite draft, but yeah, no, like the Rockets are up there for me. What player outside of the lottery was your favorite pick in the 2024 NBA draft?
Okay, so I'll go with
you. Not ahead of me, Bryce.
My bad. I know we just talked. I still like everybody knows Deron Holmes, so I won't stay there too long. I think Dalton Connect to the Lakers just makes so much sense. I think that's a guy that can come in and I know he hasn't shot well in their first couple of games. I get it. Some of the defensive concerns have shown up in that, but I still think where I had him on my board, where he ended up going, what they need, a floor spacer, potentially a real bucket getter. I like that pick a lot. So those would be the 2 that I would really shout out right there.
Yeah, I think that tracks. That's a really good fit, obviously. I like Connect. I think that, I had him like right around 9 or 10, if I remember correctly, like, something in that ballpark, like 10-ish. So like, it's a good value to me. It's not like, out of this world value to me. I loved the pick, but like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's like the best pick on planet Earth. The name that stands out to me is Isaiah Collier.
Sure. Yeah.
I think Collier has a chance to be an incredible fit next to Keontae George. He goes 29th overall to the Utah Jazz, and his power and ability to get to the rim, playing in a scheme that, where spacing matters so much with the Utah Jazz, like they're always going to have a court that is like very well spaced to me. Keontae George, Lauri Markkanen, if they decide to renegotiate and extend him versus trading him. Obviously they draft Cody Williams. A big value proposition of Cody Williams is you're betting on the shot long term. Yep. If Cody Williams doesn't shoot, then he doesn't shoot, right? I think that because that organization values shooting and off-ball movement so much, I think it's actually just like a really good fit for what Collier needs around him. And on top of it, like, it was a guy that I'd ranked like 15, 16, 17, 18, I don't know, somewhere in the top 20 that they get at 29. And that's just like awesome value in a great situation that works for him. Kyle Filipowski is another example for this, but we're going to get to him in a second. Collier's the one that stands out to me. Speaking of Filipowski, though, what is your favorite pick in the second round of this 2024 NBA draft class?
Yeah, so I had Filipowski. I'll let you go on because you already mentioned him. I like Tyler Smith. I don't know like Milwaukee, how that's going to go, but just in terms of value, Kolek still ending up with the Knicks I like another one. Johnny Furphy is one that I really like. Those are, all right at the top of the second round. So a couple deeper cuts. I like Cam Christie to the Clippers at 46. That was one I liked there. And then if I can give you an undrafted free agent, Keyshawn Johnson to the Heat as an undrafted free agent is one that I absolutely love.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That's a really fun one, actually. Keyshawn Johnson to the Heat. That's a spot where like it just works for him. Those early summer league games where it was like him and Isaiah Stevens and Khalil Ware and everything. Yeah, that was a really, really fun one. Look, Filipowski's to me like a,
yeah.
Look, I know that, Zack Edey just like demolished him and Kessler last night, but like he is a dribble pass shoot big in an NBA that is desperately crying out for them, but does not have many of them still. As we continue to move forward within a modern basketball ecosystem where younger and younger players are shooting at 7 foot tall, right? Maybe it will become less rare for people to be able to dribble pass shoot as a 7-footer. But I kind of think that it's hard to find guys that are coordinated enough to do that at that size, right? So to me, getting Filipowski in the second round is just crazy. I know all the, rumors flying around the internet about, his family situation and everything, but like, I just, to me, there was a overreaction somewhere in the process to, be it Filipowski's defense, teams maybe not loving the intel there for some reason. Again, I think it was like a bit of an overreaction. Now the cat's out of the bag, but like, yeah, like to me, Filipowski is going to be like a really useful player, and to get him in the second round is definitely bizarre to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's why, I really liked what the Jazz did in this draft, and he was a huge part of that because of that value. When I just look at the numbers of where I had him on my board and where he got taken, and you're right, like he wasn't awesome last night, but you saw the potential of what he could be in terms of a floor spacer. I think he put it on the deck once. He's skilled. I didn't think he stood out awfully as like an athlete or something like that. Sometimes that's what you can take away from these summer league games is like, man, that guy's really got to work on his body or his athleticism, or, it's really standing out in a negative way of some sort. And I didn't think that happened. So especially now as a second rounder, top of the second round, that's crazy value with what he could potentially provide as, like you said, a dribble pass shoot big.
Yep. No question. Okay. What was the most surprising pick for you in the 2024 NBA draft?
Well, I will say Ron Holland at 5 shocked me to start. Like that was the first one. Everything.
This is my pick as well.
Oh, okay.
Ron Holland shocked me.
Yeah. So like everything had gone kind of how we knew, right? Like we knew that Sarr probably wasn't going 1. Sounded like it was gonna be Zaccharie. Reed at 3 unless it got traded. Castle at 4 made a lot of sense. Him going 5, actually, those back to back really surprised me. Actually, I did not. Ron at 5. Salon at 6. And then obviously when the Wolves moved up to Dillingham, but those were the big ones. As I look through some of the rest, I don't think those were the big, and then Dalton Connect falling to 17, but those Holland for sure. And then right after that, Solana as well.
Holland did genuinely stun me because we talked a lot about Detroit moving backward in the draft. And if Holland was their guy the whole way, they should have clearly traded back because like I guess it's not impossible Charlotte could have taken him, but it seems like they were pretty locked on Salon. But that's not something that they should have known pre-draft, I guess. Number 7, Portland. I didn't get the impression Portland was on the board there. Number 8, San Antonio. I didn't get the impression San Antonio was on the
they're
board
not
there
staying there for
and
Holland and not taking that Minnesota trade for Ron Holland. I wouldn't guess.
seems unlikely to me. So like if the move was 9 with Memphis, that was on the board potentially, Memphis kind of makes sense, as a team that could have moved up. You could have easily slid back to number 9 and gotten him. But like, here's the other thing too. I don't know where Ron Holland goes.
Yeah.
Cause like, I don't like, if let's say that I think that Chicago probably would have taken Modest ahead of Ron. I think that Sacramento would have taken Devin Carter ahead of Ron Holland. Who was at number 12? Oklahoma City. I didn't really hear Ron Holland with Oklahoma City throughout the process. That's not to say they wouldn't have just done it.
Utah at 10, right? Would have been the team. Potentially.
Yeah.
But so here's I think this one, I would have been fascinated. I wish we could live in an alternate universe where this move does happen, because if Memphis moves up to 5, we're assuming they're going to take Donovan Clingan, right? And so then the question is, what does Portland do at 7? And where does Zack Edey end up going? And how would that have changed everything? Like we could still, so Clingan goes 5, Salon goes 6. What does Portland do at 7 now? Do they just take Edey?
Yeah.
Or do they go somewhere else? So that's where it would have been fascinating to see if it would have played out differently.
Yeah. So, and like people in the comments are like, Trajan Langdon said the calls dried up on draft day. No, they didn't. Teams are constantly making calls. Like maybe he wasn't getting the value he wanted for the pick. And I think that his value was probably higher than what my value would have been on that pick. I would have just taken what I could have gotten and slid down a few spots. But yeah, no, like teams are constantly making calls on draft day. And I know yes, I have a good sense that there were calls being made. The Pistons direction. I
don't know if you can answer it or not. Do you think they turned down a first round pick to move back? A future?
I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
That I don't feel comfortable saying one way or another. I truly don't know the answer to that question. So yeah, like to me, like I think my number would have just been lower than what other teams were. But yeah, like I guess if the Pistons were moving back, they would have taken Ron anyway. So like, Ron's floor was wherever the Pistons were drafting, which is intriguing to say the least. Definitely surprising that there is like no doubt about that. That is a stunning selection given everything that was trending one way with Ron Holland throughout the pre-draft process. And I'm not saying it's like a terrible pick. I don't like the fit in Detroit, but Ron Holland, I think, is a good player. Yeah. Like I think he's an active defender, if not a great defender yet. He is competitive as hell. He really wants it. Like he wants to be a great player. I really think that he has a chance to be an awesome player in Detroit and return top 5 value. Like he could absolutely return top 5 value in this draft class. I'm not saying that he's not a good player. I think that the Pistons could have very easily found an option that maybe was a lower threshold to trade than what Trajan Langdon seemingly wanted for the pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what was surprising is not that Ron Holland maybe ended up in Detroit. It's that he ended up in Detroit at 5 and it wasn't at 9 or somewhere like that.
Yeah, I think that is what really, really surprised me.
Can I ask you a question? Who would be the player that you were most surprised? You can answer one or both that didn't go in the first round. Who was the player? I think we already know the answer to this, but then maybe who wasn't drafted at all, or I think essentially what I'm asking, like who fell, like who was the biggest? What was your biggest surprise? Like, can't believe this guy's still on the board. Can't believe this guy's still on the board. Outside, obviously, Filipowski, Collier. We've already talked about this. Was there a name? Like, are you surprised Furphy didn't end up in the first round?
Furphy, I think, is probably the answer here. I expected a 6'8", 6'9" shooter to go in the first round. I think Furphy is the guy that I am most surprised did not get taken in the first round for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just hard for those guys to not get taken in the first round a lot of the time.
Cause like, yeah, that's probably the big one.
You like Cole, look, I thought that Colex Floor was the Knicks pick at
I said
25.
that was the other one I was gonna bring up was Colex.
And look, they ended up just like moving back in and taking him at 34, right? So like very clearly my read on them liking him was clearly right, but I was wrong in terms of how much, you know what I mean? Colex surprised me getting below 25. Filipowski, like it seemed like it was kind of throughout the process, I didn't have a floor for Filipowski. Was kind of like what I think I even told you that like pre-draft. I probably said it on a stream at some point. I didn't have a floor for Filipowski, which always worried me. I didn't have a floor for Furphy either, but I figured somebody would take him at the end of the day.
Because a lot of the first rounder, like Keyshawn George, we wouldn't have taken in the first round, but we had those conversations. Facundo Dadier, you had, I think in our most recent mock, not maybe the projection one, but one before, maybe the projected one, he was in the first round. Yeah. AJ Johnson at 23 surprised me, but him being a first rounder didn't surprise me. And you had brought up the Terrence Shannon Jr. thing in the episode right before the draft. Yeah. So that one didn't surprise us a whole lot either.
Yeah, I mean, I mocked AJ Johnson to the Bucks at 23, and I mocked Terrence Shannon Jr. at 27 to Minnesota. So yeah, that's kind of the reality.
Was there a guy that didn't get drafted? I brought up Keyshawn Johnson earlier. I'm trying to, Jalen Bridges, PJ Hall, Isaiah Crawford, Trey Alexander. I'm just rattling off some of the names of guys I had higher on my board that were undrafted free agent. Was there a guy that you just were kind of surprised didn't find a way to be in the top 58?
So all of my top 43 got picked, and inherently it's really hard for me to sit here and say I'm like stunned that the guy I had ranked 44th didn't get picked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
I expected Trey Alexander to get picked. I think that's probably a name, and it seems like, it's very plausible that Denver told him, hey, if you can get through the draft, we'll two-way you. And they found that to be a more advantageous situation than getting a two-way from some other team. Very plausible, but I don't know necessarily. I don't know that there's a guy that like immediately stands out. Is there one for you?
No, there's not. And that's the reason I like to bring it up is because of what you just said, though, is especially when we get to the second round, past probably 36, 37, there's a lot of guys going like, why do I want to go 45 whenever I can go undrafted and get to the exact spot I want? Austin Reeves is the one that that is most talked about doing that, but he's not the only player that's ever done that in terms of.
No, like Lou Dort's another example of that. Like Lou would have absolutely been picked, but it seemed like they picked Oklahoma City after a certain point. Right. So the Zack Edey pick is somewhat surprising, right? So let's continue on surprises here. At the very least, him going number 9 was something that like threw people off. I ended up mocking him at like 14, if I remember correctly. 14, 15. I think I ended up on 12 at one point on the mock, maybe even in the final mock. So like not that far off of where I ended up with him, but do you feel differently about the Edey pick in any way? Like we've talked a decent amount about Edey already, but to me, like this still remains like a pick that I really like, but also am intrigued to see how it works out in regard to playoff basketball, I guess. I think like Zack Edey is going to my Zack Edey take can be like summarized very simply. He's going to be one of the 10 best regular season players in this draft class, like point blank. I think that there is a very low chance he is not at least that. But I tend to value playoff contribution a little bit more, which is why I ended up with Edey at like 16, 17, 18, wherever I had him. Right. So even though like I really strongly believe he's going to give intense regular season value, I worry about what that looks like, at the playoff level at the end of the day. I think he's going to be an awesome regular season player. Is that kind of still, where we're at on Edey?
That's where I'm at. And that's, again, I had him in a similar spot on my board. And that's because as I get more to the middle first round, into the first round, I'm more inclined to be okay with an 82 game player than a guy that just comes in and eats up minutes in the regular season, eats up rebounds, eats up defenders with his screening, which is going to be awesome. And, again, it was one summer league game. I was impressed. He played well. He moved decent. There was one play in particular that stood out to me. It was a ball screen coverage, kind of a drag in transition. He just wasn't able to cover the roll quick enough, and they hit the pass over the top of him, and it gave up a bucket. And I think that's when teams are really scouting, I think they're going to be able to take advantage of that. Now, does that mean it's a wrong pick in this draft? Like, I don't know. And here's the other thing I've thought about, Sam. Is that higher than what I would want to take Zack Edey? Sure. But for that team, let's think about value. If he starts and plays 27 minutes a night and plays 73 games, that's a great return on value, because here's the other thing. They need a center. So what would they have to give up to go get a center? What would they have had to give up to go get a 10 and 10, a double center that played 20 plus minutes a night, 75 games, if that's what Edey's able to do? Like, what would that cost you? And so you figure in that value as well, because they didn't have to give that up, either trading for one and giving up a future first or second, or in free agency. Like, they couldn't pay for the guys that probably provide that. So if that's what he's able to actually do, then sure, it's worth it. Even if, like, I don't know what they do. Their answer in the playoffs then is what? Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5? Is that their answer come playoff time?
Yeah, I'd be like Jaren at the 5 with like Brandon Clark and Santi Aldama, or like, whoever they want to do.
So you have some of the flexibility built in, but why make Jaren do that for 82 games during the regular season? So, and you kind of came back at me when I brought this up with Edey. Edey can, like, I have worries about Klingon and how many minutes he played in college. That is not the case with Zack Edey, right? Like, he played a ton of minutes. I don't think he'll be able to do quite the same thing in the NBA because of the pace of the game, but he's been very reliable in terms of games and minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. Like, that is, that's where I'm at with Edey. Honestly, like, I don't have anything else to say. Like, I think he's going to be a really good regular season player for the Memphis Grizzlies. And maybe he does turn into something different in the playoffs. Like, maybe he ends up shooting.
Sure.
And that's like a whole other thing. But I don't think you can project that right now. Going to the other side of this, what was your least favorite pick in the 2024 NBA draft?
I mean, we already talked about Holland with the Pistons and how that was surprising. Salon with the Hornets was not one of my favorites. We talked about Topic during the live stream. I still haven't come around to loving that one. Again, like, Sam Presti deserves the benefit of the doubt. I think my thing there is SGA takes a ton of on ball. Maybe you do need some more on ball, but I think J-Dub eventually does a lot of that in the second unit anyway. And so what is eventually, by the way, AJ Mitchell looked pretty good in their game last night also. So I just don't, I'll be interested to be proven wrong about what Topic's role ends up being. Maybe he's better off the ball than I give him credit for as well. I just think ultimately on ball is where I'd like to see. So I don't hate that one because of where I had him ranked and where he got drafted. But that was probably the one that was just like, that's kind of an interesting spot that I don't necessarily love. Maybe more so for the player than anything else, if that makes sense.
Well, to me, the Topic thing, and look, I'm going to pick an Oklahoma City selection here, but like the Topic thing that's weird to me about Oklahoma City is like they just went through like a very on-ball player. And I think Topic and Giddey are like drastically different in a number of ways, particularly in regard to like getting dribble penetration and like playing in ball screen, and just like they're very different.
I also believe in Topic's shot more than I believe in Giddey's.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. But like, it's a multi-year process, for
Sure.
Topic.
Yes.
And to this point, he's like an on-ball only player for a team that already has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. And yes, like you do want to continue to build up like resources and depth in terms of like options that can change or options that can be available if one of those guys gets hurt, right? Like you do need depth in terms of on-ball creation, but like Cason Wallace is really good and you just drafted AJ Mitchell, right? Like you can find those guys, I think, that can give you that depth. I didn't. The Topic pick is fine from a value perspective.
Yes. Yes.
And I can't like sit here and like truly hate on it entirely, but I was surprised to see Oklahoma City go down that road. Let's say maybe the road that I was more surprised with was Dylan Jones. Although like on some level, he ticks a lot of their boxes. Like they do love these dribble pass shoot players. It's just like, and they love positional size and length and everything like that. It's just that I don't have a high grade on Dylan Jones for many of the same reasons that I didn't have a high grade on David Roddy. I don't think they meet the NBA like level athletically, defensively. And that's the reality of where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, if it works for Dylan in Oklahoma City, it'll be just because I do think he processes and passes and moves the ball well, and he can put it on the deck for his position because he had to do it a ton at Weber State. And as I mentioned multiple times, not just with him, but Jalen Tyson and other players, whenever you scale back the offensive role, hopefully that means the defensive impact and intensity and all of that stuff is able to come up. And if he's able to do that, maybe he carves out a role. That the thing in Oklahoma City is that they have so much damn depth that these guys aren't going to have to play for a while anyway, because they added Caruso, they added Hartenstein, and they brought back Wiggins and Isaiah Joe. Where are the minutes going to come from any of these dudes anyway? And Topic is going to miss most of it on top of all of that. So that's going to be a good G League team with Dylan Jones and AJ Mitchell.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's, you know, not to just like shit on Oklahoma City. Like, I loved the AJ Mitchell deal or selection. Like, AJ Mitchell was a guy I think I had at like 29, 30 or so, and you know, I think that was a fantastic pick. Like, he's going to be awesome for them. Like, I thought he was great in there. You know, you texted me and you thought he was really good, and
I did.
You know, I agreed with you. Like, I think AJ Mitchell is a really, really good player.
Yep.
Is there any first round pick where the fit of the player with the organization has made you feel differently about the player because you think that that player can really thrive within that organization? So I brought up Dillingham earlier because I wanted to talk about him in that context, but I'm going to bring up somebody else after you answer.
Yeah. So, I mean, the two guys we've already talked about make a lot of sense.
All right, I'll just go. So my immediate answer is Khalil Ware here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Khalil Ware going to Miami, I think, is the best possible landing spot for Khalil Ware. And he looks great already in Summer League, or looks very good, let's say, in Summer League already.
I would agree with that.
Overreact to what we're seeing, you know, in summer basketball. But the thing about Ware is, again, like we said this, we talked about this during the draft show, we talked about it pre-draft. I really do want to separate the fact that, like, people who've been around Khalil Ware will tell you he's like a really great kid, like a really, really nice dude, and like really like good to be around. Like there's no like culture issues in terms of personality. It's just that I didn't feel like he was a consistently active and engaged basketball player on the court defensively in the way that I like to see from big men. That's why I ended up with him at 26, whatever I had him. I think 26, 27, something like that. Getting there and getting to that situation where they're going to push him constantly to be engaged and to constantly like be active and aggressive, that has the chance to get the best out of Khalil Ware. If I was Miami particularly, I would have had Khalil Ware. And this is why I like doing a, you know, scheme agnostic, team agnostic big board is like kind of stupid. And like, it's just set up to make me look stupid in a lot of different ways, but I do it anyway because all of you guys enjoy it. Where I think really is a chance. If I was Miami, I would have Khalil Ware right around where they took him for sure. It's the same with Brandon Pajemski last year. Like I didn't love Brandon Pajemski coming into the draft, but I love putting him in the Golden State scheme where his movement, will really help him be able to get loose from defend, or the scheme's movement will help him get loose from defenders. He'll be able to like find those little creases to create kickouts and like you take best advantage of his passing ability in the way that he can. So to me, scheme with this stuff really, really matters, and cultural fit really, really matters. And Khalil Ware going to Miami is about as perfect as we can talk about with this.
No, I like that. The one I mentioned briefly, we've talked about him, but not like in depth. I think Dalton Connect, if JJ is the offensive mind and does the things with guys that he says in terms of off ball movement, shooting, running him off screens. JJ was one of the best. He was the first one I remember. Like that's who I looked up to as a shooter and tried to emulate whenever I was a kid, as I tried to shoot like JJ Redick coming off screens and all of that. So maybe a creativity offensively will be good for him. A couple others, I think Furphy to the Pacers, because of their style of play, makes a lot of sense, where we talked about maybe the best thing he does right now is get out and be impactful in transition. What do you think about the two Sixers guys with McCain and Philly spacing the floor? But he's going to come off the bench, but hey, just be a floor spacer and do those things. And then now with Paul Reed on waivers and getting claims, he's gone. I know Drummond's there for now, but Adem Bona, then hey, just come in and be a crazy, twitchy, energy big behind Joel Embiid. I kind of sneaky liked what maybe, a Nurse finding ways to get McCain shots. What do you think about those two guys in Philly? That interested me a little bit.
So there are two other things I want to bring up, or two other players I want to bring up before we get to the surprise question another surprise question I wanted to ask you. And that Philly will be one of my answers to that. So let's put a pin in Philly just very briefly. The other two fits that I love Baylor Shireman. I don't know that it made me feel differently about Shireman in any way, but like him going to Boston's perfect. It's a perfect scheme for him. Like he'll thrive there, right? Like he's going to be perfect at hitting those extra passes along the perimeter, being able to occasionally dribble and create kickouts to open 3-point shooters, and then shooting himself, obviously just an awesome shooter, has the size to defend at a level better than what other people seem to think. I think that's like a fit that, I had Shireman, I think, early 20s somewhere. If I was Boston, I would have had him higher on my board than that. It's just a perfect scheme fit. And, as presently constructed, Ryan Dunn never having to be able to like, do anything on offense is really valuable for Phoenix. Him going to Phoenix is a really, really good outcome, I think, for his career, because they will want that player who can be the aggressive defender and take all of that pressure off of like Kevin Durant, particularly as somebody who had to deal with it a lot last year. Hopefully Ryan Dunn can, take that pressure off of Durant.
Okay. Before you ask your question, I have one that this one made me think of. And I will admit, I stole this from Schlecht whenever he brought me on over there. So Andrew Schlecht, shout out for a couple of these, or this one. Who was the team that like had the most this team draft? Like they have a type and they stayed with their type in this draft.
I mean, honestly, like Oklahoma City.
Okay. So
like
that
Oklahoma
was
City, like their, I had positional size, dribble, pass, shoot. That's it.
I had three. OKC was one. I said the Pistons as a joke because it was like athlete that couldn't shoot and had floor spacing concerns. And then the other one was Toronto because Jacoby, Mogbo, and Shamshay all have like crazy wingspans. Now Jamal Shed breaks that. Yeah, Jamal Shed breaks that mold a little bit.
He also has real length though.
No, he does. He's just smaller in general, but those were the three I came up with. So it's funny that you said the Thunder because that was my first one also.
I mean, the other team that we can talk about, and this can transition into the next question, is what was your favorite team draft? So putting together everything that a single team did in the draft, who was your favorite team draft? And to me, like Houston stands out here, right? And it stands out to the question that you just asked. Like Houston does its work in terms of drafting guys that are very high on analytics models. They draft, very young players that, perform very well in models, and Reed Shepherd is like exactly that. And then they take like an upside swing in the second round on AJ Griffin. Like that's a fantastic idea to me. They had one of my favorite team drafts for sure. I would say Houston and Utah immediately stand out in regard to the team drafts. Utah just picking 3 of my top 20 players with, number 10, number 29, and number 32. Like that's great value across the board for a team that just needs it. But who were some of your favorite team-based drafts?
Yeah, so at the top end, I liked what the Wizards did. Again, I've said it multiple times now. I liked Alex Sarr. They get him at 2. He was my best player. I came around on Bub just like you, maybe not as high, but getting Bub at 14. I love Denny Avdia, but if you're going to get that for Denny Avdia, you probably go ahead and take that draft capital and equity and all of that. So I like Bub there. Keyshawn was a little bit higher for me, but okay, you take a swing on hopefully an intersection of size and skill on the wing, a guy that can ideally really floor space it. Utah's the other one for the exact same reason you said, Sam. They had guys, in my top 18, 19, 20, just like you. So I love that one. Some teams that I would say kind of won on the margins for me that I like that weren't just at the top. I like the Nuggets with Deron Holmes and then undrafted free agents, PJ Hall. And then we mentioned Trey Alexander earlier. I liked all of those. Alexander and Hall were guys that were in my top 60. I had the Suns. You mentioned Ryan Dunn. I like getting Oso in the second round, and Jalen Bridges is undrafted free agent. And then you mentioned Khalil Ware with the Heat. That's a little higher than I had Ware, but they get him. And then Keyshawn Johnson as an undrafted free agent. I like Zion Pullen as an undrafted free agent to run your G League. And Pelo Larson, if a guy that really finds the jumper, is interesting second round guy there as well. So those were more just it's not necessarily the high end talent, but win on the margins that I liked.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Washington. That's certainly a team that I liked, although I will say that, they got the Bub Carrington pick for Denny, and Denny's a really valuable player. They got a lot of other stuff for Denny as well, to be clear. But
yes,
you do have to take that into account. That
100%,
a very, very good player
on a great contract.
Memphis, I mean, look, they took Cam Spencer, so obviously I'm gonna love their draft automatically. By the way, I want you to look at the box score for the Memphis game.
I watched the game. Here's the
no. I'm talking about the one that's happening right now.
No, I don't want to.
Who has 2/3 of their points in the first quarter? Cam Spencer does.
Jalen Wells. Sam texted me last night at 2:00 in the morning because the time change is all messed up for us to actually have conversations. And he goes, man, this screen is just a thing of beauty. This is an all NBA level screen. I'm like, oh man, Zack Edey must have laid somebody out. No. This is not a Zack Edey screen. This is Cam Spencer screening for Zack Edey is what I get in my text messages.
I may or may not have texted somebody very high up in the Grizzlies front office saying, I'm just going to become a Cam Spencer screens Twitter account, and that's all I'm going to do with my life. It was a good screen though, wasn't it?
I had to admit that it was a really nice screen by Cam Spencer. Look, he shot the ball well that game too. He looked good. Straight up.
Yeah, no. Cam Spencer has 11 of their 17 first quarter points right now.
Also, his brother had a good game the other night too and put a dude on a poster.
Pat's good. Oh, Pat's a sick athlete. Pat is one of the best athletes in the NBA, just point blank.
Justin Edwards bounced back. Good for him, man. Hit 2 threes already. Yeah, good. Because he struggled last night. Good for him.
It was not a great start for Justin Edwards.
It was not.
That is true.
Good.
Okay. I've not watched a second of this game.
I have not. I haven't either. I'll watch it tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite team drafts outside of those teams? Yeah, Utah. Look, 3 of my top 20 players. We just kind of have to talk about that. Trying to think who else. The Lakers taking Connect. That was a big one. Boston getting Shireman. The Blazers getting Klingon and Denny. That was actually a really good one. The Blazers getting Klingon and Denny that is going to be a really valuable set of players for them. And then, we haven't talked a ton about Devin Carter, but like Devin Carter was one of my favorite players in this draft class. Same with Bub. Like we haven't talked a lot about Bub in this class, in this thing either, but Devin Carter getting to Sacramento, where honestly, like if he's ready to go by training camp with this shoulder thing, and like it seems unclear whether or not that's going to be the case. People are talking about like Keon Ellis starting for the Sacramento Kings from a defensive perspective. And this is no shade at Keon Ellis. Like Keon Ellis had a great like second half of the season last year and did such a great job of establishing himself as like a real rotation player in the NBA. But man, Devin Carter is like kind of exactly what they need in the middle of that, De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk group, just because they need somebody who can defend, and he is an unbelievable defender.
And I want to point this out as well. Like, I think we both believe he can guard both backcourt positions and potentially wings, right? Because I know that's a lot of pushback from Kings fans is, oh, he's only able to guard. No, I think he has a little more versatility with the matchups he can take. And maybe he's still just going to be a rookie, so maybe it takes a little bit longer to get there. But I think that's something we both believe in, that there's some positional versatility and flexibility with the matchups he'll be able to take on.
Yeah. Okay. Final question, and we have to do it. Bronny James has signed a 3-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. He was picked 55th overall. We've seen him play. I've watched one summer league game. Has he played two?
He didn't play in the second one. They announced like an hour before the game at knee or something. I don't know. Something. Okay. He didn't play.
Yeah. Look, I still think that, he was not a player I would have selected, but honestly, for the Lakers at 55, making LeBron happy is probably more valuable than what they would have gotten at that pick. Yeah. Like that's where I'm at on the Bronny thing.
Yeah, no, that's same. I'm in the same spot. I don't have a whole lot of takes. I'm not going to over-evaluate him. I watched his games. Like he got to his spots. He didn't make shots in that game. He struggled a little bit. There's a lot of the stuff we talked about. I thought he looked
sped up for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, and with him, it's going to come down to the jumper. And again, we talked about this. He has to be awesome defensively, and maybe he gets there. But now that he's in the NBA defending the guys that he's going to have to defend, we can, evaluate him on how good and impactful he's going to be and how well he's able to hold up. So it is what it is. Yeah. I mean, if it makes LeBron happy, it makes LeBron happy. So,
yep. I think that's the reality. Okay. Any other closing?
I have one more. Ahead. I have one. Let's so again, I'm still one more from Andrew. Who would be like your league pass? Like, who are you more excited to watch on league pass because of the draft specifically? I know, like I said, other people won't watch them, but I'm a nerd. I put the Wizards because I do want to see Alex Sarr and Bub Carrington and even Keyshawn George if he does play. And then the other team I said was the Wolves because I want to see what Rob Dillingham is. And then I would just like Schlecht said Zack Edey because people just want to figure out what this monster of a man is. But I didn't. Is there a different answer for you?
Yeah, this isn't really a league pass draft. You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure.
It's not like there isn't a Wembanyama or a Scoot or a Brandon Miller or like.
Well, quite honestly,
Thompson.
I was gonna say there's not even the Thompson twins where it's like these dudes are insane athletes and just gonna do something that wows you no matter what.
No, I think that's right. So, look, I think Washington's probably the right answer for me too, just because I think that Sarr and Bub will probably play at some point this year.
Yeah,
and we'll get like a real opportunity to showcase what they're capable of. And I am interested in that, but yeah, I don't know that this is like a league passy draft. It's kind of what I would say.
No, I was stretching to get there. Whenever I'm glad he gave me that question ahead of time or else I would have really struggled because I had to think on it for a little bit. So,
yeah. All right. Any closing thoughts? I mean, obviously we're going to talk about Summer League with these guys, right? Like I thought this would be like a really good kind of intro for Summer League for people as well as why we're doing this. But like any, closing thoughts on the 2024 draft cycle as this thing finishes out?
I'm excited to go watch them in person. It's been fun watching the California Classic and the Salt Lake just to see some of these guys play and see how they look and start to try to critique my own evaluations and all of that. But just kind of reminder to everybody, let's not take victory laps or give out receipts off Summer League. We can get excited, we can evaluate, we can talk, but let's hold those for a little while. But I told you, Sam, Vegas, those days are some of my favorite days. And a lot of it ends up not even being watching basketball. Like I just enjoy being able to be around people and hang out and network. And so I'm excited for it. And the nice thing this summer is usually when Summer League's over, we have this huge letdown. And we won't this summer because it's the Olympics. So we'll get to go watch the Olympics. Shout out my guy, Jose Alvarado, taking Puerto Rico to the Olympics with a couple big games. So we'll be able to go right into Summer League to the Olympics and we won't have to be without basketball for very long.
Yeah, I will watch the Olympics. I will probably be resting a little bit more than diving deep into Olympics basketball. We'll talk about it on the show for sure. And like, I'll watch some games, but I'm not going crazy over the Olympics here. Two final things, Bryce, we got to do it.
Okay.
We got to do it, bud.
Which one?
We got to talk about the Detroit Pistons.
Oh, amazing. 2 episodes in a row. This is awesome. I know.
We're going on like 5 or 6 episodes in a row where we're talking about the Pistons at this point.
Oh, amazing. Worst team in the league, and we find a way to talk about them every single episode.
They keep doing interesting shit.
It's not my fault. I want everybody to know I do not ask to do this.
No. This is all me. Like
okay,
I'll hand up, all me. 100%.
Appreciate it.
So the Pistons are claiming Paul Reed off of waivers. He's in the second season of a 3-year, $24 million deal. I'm assuming they're going to guarantee his $8 million deal for this year, I guess. I'm so 2 things here. I don't love Paul Reed as a player. Like I think he's like an interesting, fascinating, energetic guy that rebounds well and is like active on the court. And I think people sometimes mistake like activity for value. And I think he's like a average like backup center, basically, if not like a little bit worse than that, frankly. Like I think Nick Richards is better than him. Like I'll just like say that. I would rather have Nick Richards on my team than B-ball Paul. Having said that, I do wonder if this is a precursor to something we talked about on the last episode. Isaiah Stewart definitely has value league-wide, I would think, because there are a number of teams that could use a player like Isaiah Stewart in theory. The Kings are the team we brought up last time. The Pelicans make an immense amount of sense, I think.
Yep.
For Isaiah Stewart.
Yep.
Do you think that claiming B-ball Paul off of waivers and using their cap space to do this in the way that they did could be a precursor to an Isaiah Stewart type of move?
I have to say yes, because I don't know where the minutes come for all of these guys if it's not. And maybe you play Paul Reed as your third center and he doesn't get to play a lot unless there's injuries or something. But like people will say, oh, you could play somebody at the 4. There's no minutes at the 4 either, because you just paid Tobias Harris $26 million.
I just want to cut you off there. Absolutely cannot play Paul Reed at the 4.
Well, I was talking about Isaiah.
Decision.
I was talking about Isaiah Stewart more, or people who look at.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think you want to play Stu at the 4 a whole lot either. I'm just saying people will look at heights, potential floor spacing, stuff like that. Even if you wanted to, 30 plus minutes are going to Tobias Harris, plus Asar has to moonlight at the 4. Tech will Simone Fontecchio will moonlight at the 4. There's just not a lot of minutes at the 4 is my point. And so I've always said this. I like the idea of Detroit bringing in, I kind of wanted it to be a rim protector, but another center. But then what does that mean for Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart? Seems like Jalen Duren's probably in the long-term plans. And so, and for those who don't know, Isaiah Stewart, his extension kicks in. He is on a flat $15 million for the next 3 years, and then a club option at $15 million for the 4th year. So if Stu is anywhere close to the player I think he is, and what he could be in the playoffs as a third big, especially if the floor spacing sticks, that's really good value as a what eventually becomes below the MLE later in that deal. And you have a club option if you don't like it. So I think he has real value. I would love to know what it is. I don't want Isaiah Stewart to get traded because I like him as a player, but I would be fascinated to know what his value is on the market. I mean, there's been reports for like 2 years now. The Celtics loved him. I don't think they'd be interested now, probably with what they've done.
Oklahoma City's another team that's been brought up.
Yeah. Like, so just for people, a lot of the Pistons fan base hates Isaiah Stewart. Don't think he's good. Don't think he should be in the league. Don't think he should be playing. And a lot of the rebuttals are, well, then why do some of these contenders like him so much? And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, like always. But I'd be interested to know what his value is. So that was a long way of saying I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. If I am the Pistons, I look at a few different options here. Like, could you take back from Sacramento, a 1st round pick and Kevin Huerter, while also like trying to help them with some salary, right? Like Kevin Huerter, a 1st round pick, plus you take back like Jalen McDaniels or, whoever else they want to get rid of money wise, like in order to help their books, because that's something that they can like really, really help with right now. If you're New Orleans, obviously New Orleans has, all of this money that's on the books and going to be on the books because they have to extend Trey Murphy here coming up. Like that's a big number that, like, again, Trey Murphy, $30 million a year player, probably. So they can really help out the Pelicans if the Pelicans maybe don't like the CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray fit potentially. And they just decide, we're going big around Zion. We're going to go DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Zion, and like, Isaiah Stewart or Yves Missy or, whoever you want to do. Or we're going to play Zion at the 5, and then we still have, enough length to be able to do some things. Well, Jordan Hawkins come off the bench and be like our shooter or whatever. Like they can really, really help the Pelicans, save some money and do, CJ McCollum in a 1st for Isaiah Stewart or something like that. That would be a number. That'd be a deal that like really sets the Pelicans like money situation up positively. Not like the Pelicans want to win and CJ is useful still, but like the Pelicans could set themselves up a little bit more effectively by doing something like that.
Because CJ still has 2. So you're saving them $18 million this year, $15 million the season after, based on CJ's contract. I also wonder, like, if anything else,
and they're going to add next year. Trey's deal. Like Trey's deal is going to be what, probably 20 to 25 million bigger.
Yeah.
So, and you lose the Brandon Ingram deal, obviously, off your money like that. There are just some different ways to look at this thing. And obviously, like, Brandon Ingram is still there, and maybe you move CJ instead of Brandon Ingram or something like that.
Well, and I also wonder if anybody else ends up going in this deal with Stewart. Like if it turned, we're talking about just like Stewart for a serviceable player, but bigger than their contract. Maybe there's an asset. Is there a way to then replace CJ McCollum in New Orleans with a Marcus Sasser? And so you send Sasser out as well. And, it turns into something a little bit bigger. And because here's the thing with Detroit, I think they have 12 dudes that all think that they should be playing, like that all think that they're going to be in the rotation.
Which, by the way, that was true last year as well.
Yeah. And so like, how is that all going to play out? Who are you not going to prioritize? Are you going to play the vets in place of giving the young guys minutes? And so it's a fascinating roster right now. And I kind of hate it for Stewart because I feel like he's finally about to be in the role where he can be successful even in Detroit, and
Yeah.
where I think the fan base would appreciate him. And so if he gets moved before he actually, but if he goes somewhere else and is successful, people will see it. So I think he's a good player.
Do you think the Lakers would consider something like Rui, Gabe Vincent, and a first for Isaiah Stewart?
See, like that almost seems too much to me. Like as we talk through it,
The
like
Lakers are like $400 or $45,000 away from the second apron, and getting that flexibility would be really valuable for them, I think, during trade season.
yeah.
And like Isaiah Stewart would be like very useful for them. Would be very, very useful for them off the bench, or even like starting next to Anthony Davis. Look, like I know Isaiah Stewart had that moment a few years ago where he chased after LeBron, right? That was pretty hysterical, but like he's a good player.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are a number of teams that Detroit could really help right now, and also help in terms of giving them an asset in Isaiah Stewart.
So that maybe
it doesn't feel like too much of a dump. You know what I mean?
That's where that's where I'm miscalculating, is it's not just Stewart. You're also helping a team get off money. And maybe that's where the trades sound weird to me, is like, as much as I've talked up Stewart, it's like, man, is he worth all of that? But it's not just him. There's also the value of getting off the money that the Pistons can still absorb into their cap space that they have. So,
right. That's the big thing. Like, are there any teams out there that really want to get off money in order to set themselves up for a little bit more flexibility? Like, could you do something with Dallas, where Dallas, moves off of Maxi Kleba and, gives up something of value, right?
Sure.
I don't know if they would want to do that necessarily, but yeah, like the fact that Isaiah Stewart is on like a 4-year, $15 million deal with that flexibility in the last year, I don't know. That feels like a good deal, plus helping to create flexibility for a team long term.
Kleba's actually makes less.
Yeah, Kleba's at like 11 million, so you'd have to add like more money on. But yeah, no, that's the plan here. And Bryce is just like gone at this point. Bryce is departed us, unfortunately. I don't know where he went. Things are gone. Things are bad. Bryce is just Bryce has left us. We'll see if he comes back here in the next 30 seconds. He did. Yay. Okay, Bryce is back. So
something went wrong, StreamYard said. I just was gone all of a sudden.
Sometimes that happens. So yeah, look, like to me, Detroit still holds a lot of cards here. The other team that holds a lot of cards is Utah.
Yeah.
Utah can really use their cap space to help some of these teams out of second apron trouble. And it's a little bit weird to me that we haven't seen anybody do a dump deal kind of like that yet. Look, at some point, I think the trade market will like unclog, because just so many of these rosters like don't make enough sense right now. So I'm guessing that at some point this market will unclog and we will get a chance to see something different.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to talk about is Cooper Flagg, just very briefly. We'll do like a 2025 mock like after Summer League at some point. But Cooper Flagg looks unbelievable in everything I've seen from USA practices. It is laughable how good he looks.
Yeah, he's good.
Just dominating. He's like out there. Like, there's a clip from today where he is literally like creating a shot against Drew Holiday as like a point of attack defender. And like he just like gets to a crossover, gets to a step back, knocks down a shot. Right. He had that moment, in the game before or in yesterday's practices where like he I guess like got a dump off from, I think it was Pods, and then he sprints back the other way, blocks a shot, and then like comes back down and like throws a pass and like gets an assist, like all in like a 30-second clip. It's like this dude is 17 years old.
Okay, so I was just about to say that. I was going to text Sam. Do you know how old Cooper Flagg actually is? You know what? He doesn't turn 18 till December. Till December.
He is 17 and he's doing this. Cooper is a stud. He is awesome, man. I am such a big fan. I think that Duke team, I know it's not like, you know, wildly popular to be very heavily on this Duke team because people are out on Shire or whatever. Man, I think this Duke team is going to be fucking awesome
with
this
Proctor,
year.
Foster, Darren Harris,
Zion James, who's going to be really useful for them. Mason Gillis, who's like a really useful defender.
Oh yeah, Gillis. I missed. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then like Malik Brown, like the guy that I'm not as high on is Malawak after having seen him.
Yeah.
But like Con Kneppel's a stud.
Yep.
Isaiah Evans is like really interesting, at least. Has a chance to be really good.
Talk about trying to figure out playing time. Goodness gracious.
They have 12 dudes. Like they really have like 10 to 12 dudes that should be playing like serious minutes to me. So
yeah, I mean, Cooper, like I have at the very top of my notes, intersection of size, skill, and athleticism at the forward position.
And
like
feel.
It's a position that I really value, an arc like that kind of true forward, but he has all the skill level to go with it. And then the defense, you know, weak side rim protecting, maybe has some on-ball versatility in terms of the matchups he can take. He's physical already. He shows some touch. And then like, you know, he ran the ball screen as the handler and as a screener. He, you know, if the shot really comes around, he should be able to pop or roll. There's a lot of really cool outcomes with him.
No, I totally agree. I think he's going to be a stud. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. Okay, Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, like I said, a couple different Substacks. I'm putting stuff out. I actually think I have a really cool article that's a Summer League primer coming, but it's not from me. It's from somebody that reached out. I'll explain more whenever it drops, but it's like 30 some pages breaking down all of these Summer League rosters, who to watch, what's exciting, stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that. I'll tweet it out next couple days. Other than that, the Pistons Pulse will be live Sunday morning if you want to watch that. And then obviously I'll be out in Vegas, as Sam mentioned. We'll do some lives while we're out there also.
At some point, we'll talk about basketball. My guess is it'll be more in the morning out there when we do it, because I won't be out late drinking in Las Vegas, frankly.
Same.
And I will also be doing some, you know, other stuff out there, basically. So yeah, that's the plan. We will be live more in the mornings coming for the next week, but keep it locked here. Again, 2025 mock draft. I won't be able to like actually tell you guys when it goes up on Twitter because I will be on a plane coming to the United States at that point for 16 hours. Go to The Athletic tomorrow morning and you'll be able to see that. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the subscribe button over on Spotify, etc. All of that would be really, really valuable and helpful for the show. We really appreciate everybody who's been listening over the course of the last month. You know, listenership, viewership, all this stuff just continues to rise and rise and rise. And that's all thanks to you guys. So we really appreciate it. But until next time, we will talk soon. Bye.